Okay, so just to let you know, my name is Edwin Quinones. I'm the program manager here for the WBC of Central Ohio. Welcome to the training workshop we have, Marketing to the Federal Government. This will be a government contracting series presented by Shonda Harris, Vikki Hawthorne, and Jill Nagy Reynolds, and hosted by the Women's Business Center of Central Ohio. Now, the Women's Business Center, we have 4 locations throughout Ohio. Columbus is our main location here, headquarters, and we have Cincinnati, Cleveland, and also office in Portsmouth. This is going to be a quick intro because it's going to be a long 2 hours. So we want to make sure we get everything in. But we do provide access to one-on-one business coaching, professional advisor, and mentors, training and workshops, online education resource such as Initial Prosperity, and access to capital funding throughout ECBI. Now, at this time, I would like to introduce our special guest speakers, Shonda Harris, Vikki Hawthorne, and Jill Nagy Reynolds. Now, if anybody has any questions, they can put it on the chat or wait till after the presentation is over, but we'll go over all the chats at the end. So without further ado, please, guest speakers.
Okay, good morning.
Okay, I'm sorry, Vikki. I wasn't sure.
Go on. No, go on, Jill.
Well, good morning, everybody. I will introduce Vikki in just a minute. We're very lucky to be working together today. And my name is Jill Nagy Reynolds, and I'm with the SBA Columbus District Office. My colleague Shonda Harris is also with us today. And if all of you can just take a quick look at Vikki's screen here, because this is a series of trainings that we're doing this week. And I really hope that those of you that can join us for this week will. And then it just kind of concludes the following week on December 14th with a networking event. So today we're going to talk about marketing to the federal government. Vikki is a wonderful asset, a lot of knowledge. I can't wait to hear her presentation. And then December 6th, Shonda Harris, my colleague, will be doing a deep dive into SBA small business certifications. And on December 7th, I'm going to talk about the woman-owned and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business program. And on December 8th, we're going to talk about teaming arrangements. Why is that important in federal contracting? And what is a teaming arrangement? And how can your business become involved with one in order to maximize success? And then because you've spent so much time with us and you've learned so much, you're going to join us at the holiday networking event in Columbus at the State Library. It's free, and it's a chance for all of us to meet face to face. So just logistically, Shonda and I will be monitoring the chat, but we're not going to answer the questions until Vikki has like 5 different segments that she's working on today. So we will take questions from the chat at the end of each segment. So this is being recorded, and we will provide the slides to you after the presentation. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Vikki Hawthorne. She's now a procurement counselor, but I've known Vikki for about 15 years, and she is just a wealth of knowledge, very pro small business, an excellent presenter, and definitely an expert in government contracting. So what is it? Fasten your seatbelts. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Vikki.
Thank you. Oh gosh, that was a gracious introduction. Nah, I'm not an expert though. I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm always learning things new about this federal contracting space. It's really, gosh, we're here to help you navigate it. Let's put it that way. And yeah, buckle up because there's 85 charts. And we'll get through all of them. The key piece is this will be a handout for you. It'll be a handout for you to kind of guide you after this session. And we'll get through the charts. I'm with Apex Accelerator, formerly known as Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And this organization has been around since the mid-'80s. mid-'80s. I became involved with this organization in the mid-'90s when I was with the Department of Defense working in the small business office. And it's so funny because Shonda and Jill were procurement counselors. They were doing what I'm doing now when I was first introduced to them. Then they went over to as a civil servant with SBA. So it's really a pleasure to be able to present with them today. And I have to say, this federal contracting series, I've attended a lot of webinars, participated in doing the train the trainers and reaching out to small businesses for a long time. And I can tell you this sequence is, I think this is the first time I've been involved in a sequence, a series this tight. And I was just talking to Jill earlier before the session started. We might need to do this every year because the good lead up is that holiday networking event, and networking face to face, is pretty important part of the recipe for success. So let's dig in. I do want to say a disclaimer. I'm not an expert. I'm just a counselor, procurement counselor with Apex Accelerator. We have hundreds of Apex accelerators across the country. And all of them, we're all human. We all have our different perspective on what's important and what's not. We definitely have to follow rules and regulations. But I just want, this is my take on it. And you're going to have to take, the information and you make it fit or not fit with your business model. So just keep that in mind. I want to kind of dig in a little bit and talk about federal contracting in general. It's a huge market, $650+ billion on-time payment. Now, you might say, oh, I heard the government doesn't pay on time. If the paperwork is submitted correctly from the small business, they're pretty much on-time payments. So keep that in mind. A great repeat customer, and someone somewhere is getting the work. Why not you? Now, there's procurement regulations and rules, and you better get with it if you want to do business with the federal government, because you're going to have to learn the language. Yes. You're going to have to learn the abbreviations. Yes, if you want to be successful. It starts out with the Code of Regulations of, it's the law. It's the 13 CFR. And that's the law that establishes how the government buys and all the programs within the federal contracting space. Now, within, the next level is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. Each federal agency has their own supplement and they have their own rules. So you see those layers starting to build up with agencies, and those organizations have their little nuances. Part 19 within the FAR is the small business programs. If you're a small business, you would want to kind of look at that and see what programs are available and how your organization may benefit from some of those programs. Then the other part of that FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation, is Part 52. That has all those solicitation provisions and contract clauses. It has standard clauses. It has specific clauses, any notices and instructions on how to complete certain contract information. That is where you're going to get the guidance. So again, the federal procurement has rules and regulations. The federal government also has small business goals. Each year, the United States government spends billions of dollars purchasing goods and services from private sector firms. The small business goal is 23%. Within the small business community, there other categories within that. 5% for woman-owned small business, 12% for disadvantaged 8A businesses. There's 3% historically underutilized business zone goal, service disabled veteran goal of 3%. Each of the federal agencies have federal spending goals, and they coordinate with SBA, Small Business Administration, to negotiate what those goals are each year. And even within prime contractors, large businesses per se, that work directly with the federal government, they have subcontracting goals as well. There's different ways the government procures, different procurement methods. And these are all identified in what? The Federal Acquisition Regulation. There's sealed bidding, and that's basically where you submit a bid and they open it up, and it's basically the best offer. I could say there could be some exceptions, the lowest price. Then there's RFPs. Those are requests for proposal. And those bids, those proposals are evaluated based on certain factors. It could be price, it could be performance, it could be your technical capability, and each of those criteria, that buyer, that contracting officer determines what percentage up to 100 those source selection factors include. Then there's micro purchases. Micro purchases, they're up to $10,000. Those aren't posted. Those are hard to find, but I'll get to it. We'll talk about that a little bit. Micro purchases up to $10,000, and the contracting officer selects the vendor. And those even could be purchased via credit card, government purchase card.
Yes.
So again, there's different methods of procurement.
Work on school.
And there's different rules and regulations. And there's even a GSA schedule, General Services Administration schedule. That's a government agency that it looks at the entire federal agency, and they say, hey, we could have one instrument that all the federal agencies can pick from. That's available as well. And there's different nuances and rules and regulations on all these procurement methods. But again, more detail on it is located in the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation. So who purchases your products or service? How often? When? How much? From what company? These are things that you need to consider. Can we get on mute, please?
Tratina Thomas. Tratina Thomas, can you put yourself on mute? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, who purchases your product or service? How often? When? How much? From what company? There's a couple different tools. There's multiple tools, but the tools that I could recommend would be the Product Service Code tool, the PSC, and the NAICS tool, NAICS, North American Industry Classification System Code. And NAICS rhymes with cakes. And I believe that's still the correct pronunciation, Chanda, Jill, NAICS.
Yes.
Okay, because
Correct.
for years, when I was even a buyer, a contracting officer, I mispronounced that word many times, but it's NAICS. And I want you to learn that terminology. Don't go in front of a buyer or contracting officer. Don't say it another way. They won't correct you, but you best believe they'll remember. But selecting your appropriate code can vary. I mean, you have in your mind your product or service, and you're determining what that product service code is. You want to find out what the agency considers the product and service code for that product or service, because that's what drives The federal government selects the product service code. I know you always hear about NAICS code. NAICS code. What is your NAICS code? Excuse me, SBA. But you always hear about NAICS code. But the buyer contracting officer, they have a product service code first, because that is how they record the procurement activity. The first step is the product service code. Once they establish that product service code, then they'll determine what the appropriate NAICS code is. And I'm sure we'll talk about the NAICS code basically is, if you're a small business, less than 250 people, I think one NAICS code may be, or 100 people. If you're a product, you're a small business. If you do services, and you have to be up in like millions and millions and millions of dollars to be considered a large business. So I think for the sake of this conversation today, if you're a small business just starting out, or again, confirm it by your NAICS code, but you're considered a small business. I'm going to say all folks in here are small business. Now, federal opportunities, they're posted. They're posted in SAM.gov. SAM is System for Award Management. But the thing about SAM, with some exceptions, federal agencies are only required to post those opportunities if they're estimated 25,000 or above. Again, federal agencies are required to post opportunities if they're estimated 25,000 or above. So you're like, where can you get the ones less than 25,000? I'm just starting out. Again, you can go into SAM, and we'll talk about this a little bit later when you get to talking about market research, but there's ways to find those dollars. And let's see. Now, you can go into SAM without having an account and search on opportunities all day long. You could go to sam.gov right now, don't have an account, search and see what are open requirements. You just can't access everything, all the data tools in SAM without being a registered user. In order to do business with the federal government, you must have an active SAM entity registration. Entity, SAM calls your business the entity. So keep that in mind. You're not the entity, your business is the entity. The System for Award Management, again, if you want to do business with the federal government, that means obtain contracts, awards, purchase orders, and those who are may have a nonprofit. You can get, in order to get grant funding, you do have to be registered in SAM as well. But you must register your entity, and registering your entity does not mean you're active. And we'll talk about that. You must register your entity, and then you must have an active SAM registration. Okay, with that limited information, you can kind of have a first checkpoint, making the decision. What does the government buy? Practically everything. What is your core competency? Define what you can do best. You need to do the market research. There's tools there available. The who, the what, the when, the where of what the federal agencies are buying, and compare that to what you are selling. Have you sold to the commercial market? That's very helpful. And do you have the adequate financial resources? And are you willing to make the investment? Not just monetarily, but the grit, because you need some grit. And if you're a small business or aspiring to be in the small business community, you have that grit. Now, I didn't go by the exact template but marketing to the federal government is dynamic. I mean, I just mentioned a few things, and this is just an inkling of the pieces that go together in doing business with the federal government. And there's no there's no one size fits all. It's based on your competencies. It's based on your capability. It's based on your capacity. It's based on what the government is buying. It's just so many factors to that. I mean, and some people call it overwhelming. It is frustrating. It is. It's, navigating. It's tough. And and I like to call it's a dynamic process. But there's free technical assistance available. And again, I'm part of the Apex Accelerator network. It's a national network, and there's some territories that have Apex Accelerator assistance. This is the website. If you're located outside of Ohio, I'll get the Ohio connection, but you can find Ohio through this website. We help businesses, small businesses, do business, the federal government. Out of all the there's plenty of resource partners. There's plenty of YouTube. There might be some YouTube folks on here now that help folks do business with the government. I mean, there's so many resources out there to assist businesses in doing business with the government. But based on my nearly 4 decades, federal, state, city, government contracting, Apex Accelerators is bar none, and I'm humbled and blessed to be a part of this group. Retired civil servants, retired buyers, retired contracting officers, experience in proposal writing, proposal reviews, technical, manufacturing, folks that are accountants and attorneys. I mean, we don't practice that if they are that. I mean, we're not financial advisors. We don't counsel you on legal or accounting, but we're resourceful. And we reach to our network. If we can't find within our own network, or me as a counselor within my own Ohio network, I can spread out and access the national network. Help businesses with certifications, applications, market research, capability statement, things of that nature. So again, we're here to assist. So I'm going to be talking, kind of splitting it up in five different areas, and it's not by priority. Because like I said, the process is dynamic. You'll find that the pieces kind of overflowed each other, and I had a hard time trying to decide which one was first. So I just picked this one, the market research. I'm going to start with first, then I'm going to dig into capability statement, what's needed, SAM, System for Award Management, because that's a tough one, elevator pitch, and outreach. So let's get in. Market research. Okay, I kind of mentioned this before. Research your market. Who purchased your product, your service, how often, when, how much, and for what company. I mentioned about the PSC codes, the NAICS codes. You need to know your keywords as well, and the terminology for your product or service. And I kind of start with the keywords. Whenever I get and help a client, I say, hey, what are your keywords for your product and or service? And let's search on that first, because the product service code and NAICS code can vary from agency to agency. Even some of the keywords can vary from agency to agency. One agency may use janitorial, for example, and another agency may use cleaning. So it can vary. So you're going to have to determine which agencies you want to work with or attempt to work with and see what terminology they're using. And that's all about the market research. Now, there's some market research out there. They're free. You shouldn't be they're free. And some of the resources are sam.gov. They have a lot of information located in SAM. And I would recommend creating a personal account for full access of the market research data. But keep in mind, I said create a personal account, because you don't have to, again, you don't have to be a user to access the opportunities exam, but to access the full data, you need to have an active register for a personal account. But just because you're registering for a personal account, I want you to know that you're not registering your entity. There's the Federal Procurement Data System. That is the system that the government uses to track the contracts, the dollars spent, the federal dollars spent. And from that, USA Spending takes that information and creates the USA Spending. Now, I've heard a couple different folks like using the USA Spending because it's a little easier to use, a little easier to find the data. I'd say use both of them, learn to use both of them, I guess, because my, frame of reference was federal. So I'm more familiar with FPDS, Federal Procurement Data System. And I do use USA Spending. That may be a little more beneficial for maybe contact information, more current contact information. So they all have their value. I kind of mentioned GSA, General Services Administration. They kind of do the corporate buying for the entire federal government. They have a library that does provide pricing information. It provides folks that are on these contract businesses that are on the contracting instruments for the corporate government. So a lot of great information in that GSA library. And then there's also that DLA Internet Bid Board System. DLA is Defense Logistics Agency. If you have a product, you may find some opportunities there. So those are the free tools. Now, as an Apex Accelerator client, if there's some information that we're not able to locate, you're not able to locate, or we're both not able to locate from a session we may have, we as Apex Accelerator counselors have access to these other tools. Now, these tools cost, they have a monthly fee, but our host has paid for that service so we can help our clients. If needed, we do have access to other data tools that can assist you in your market research. But not all Apex Accelerators are created equal. I'm just speaking again from the reference of my host, which is Ohio University, Apex Accelerator. We do have access to that for our clients. Now, some market research tips. You need to kind of get organized here, have your rhyme or reason. You need to categorize your searches and data. You want
to click off. I already want to get this shit off the screen.
Those large businesses that are working directly with the government, federal government. You want to look at the agencies, and you may even want to look at teaming arrangements, because within SAM, you can find who won the award. You may want to connect with them, say, hey, I can help you support this contract or purchase order. So that is where I want you to look at all avenues before you decide where to kind of land. And with that, you want to prioritize your targets. And you can use, I'd mentioned earlier about the federal spending. They have small business goals. With your market research, you may want to look how they're doing on their goals. That could be a way. You want to use their forecast information. All the federal agencies have to post yearly their forecasting. Now, how reliable it is, let me just say they meet the requirement. And it does give you some valuable information and some contact information. And information is located at acquisition.gov. Use your network, events, affiliations, organizations. It's all about coming up with your magic recipe to do business with the government, federal government. And know your customer's language, because again, it's different. Establish a top 10 client profiles you want to do business with. And other research considerations, budgets. That's important. Do they have the money to spend? Their strategic plans. They have to come up with strategic plans, like 1 to 5 year plans. And typically those are posted on their website. If you have trouble finding those, we can help track those down as Apex Accelerator counselors. Their priorities, past contracts, any innovations, patents, licenses that may be instrumental in doing your market research. Next, we're going to talk about the capability statement. And the capability statement, it's basically a one-page document. I consider it the first exposure that you're having with the federal government. Now, you can have, as you have those second or third exposures, eventually getting to, let's say, the program manager, it'll be a little more detailed. But I'm talking the initial exposure. It's a one-page document. Don't try to make it front and back. I mean, even though there's exceptions for everything. But I'm going to talk about what are the uses of the capability statement, what are the elements of a capability statement, and what you can do to make sure your capability statement stands out. And again, they're not, you might think they're easy to put together, but you really got to think about it. And I think you really have to do some market research first in order to see who you're going to be, what agency you're going to be focusing on, and what competencies you may want to enhance. So again, it all kind of works together, but it serves as the door opener to your business, and it can be used when agencies or prime contractors are doing their market research. So you can kind of help them carve out what the requirement is to be posted or the solicitation. And sometimes your capability statement can be included in part of your proposal. And your capability statement should be uploaded in the dynamic small business search. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we get more into SAM. But yeah, your capability statement, it's a critical piece in doing business with the federal government. And you call it a capability statement. But, if spacing is an issue and you need to use it for something more important, take the capability statement title out. But you would have the company data, business name, the address, your codes, your commodity codes. Then you have your core competencies. Then you have the past performance. Then you have what stands out you apart from your competitors. And then you want to make sure it matches your corporate branding. Let's talk a little bit about the company data, what's included in the company data, contact info, your UEI, your unique entity identification number, your CAGE code, commercial and government entity code as far as federal, any other commodity codes that you may have, you will want that included in your capability statement. If you have any current contracts in place, you would want to list that as well. Any socioeconomic considerations or certifications, you would mention that in the company data. Then we talk about the core competencies, and you headed up your core competencies or capabilities. This is what your company does, and you want to focus on what your company does best. And again, you would target your competencies toward your audience. And again, you may have more than one capability statement. And if you're really, serious about doing business with the federal government, you will have more than one capability statement. But you want to be specific, you want to be brief, and you want to be, to the point, focusing on keywords, and let it be in bullet points so it's easy to read. I've read so many capability statements, and I tell you, I've received feedback from buyers and contracting officers. Be brief, concise, and to the point, not a bunch of words. They want to get to the document quickly. They want to review it quickly. And for example, like via email, how you would send, let's say, an introduction, short little introductory email, then you would attach your capability statement. Once it opens up, you want the key information to be shown first, and you don't want that buyer contracting officer, that potential contact, to have to kind of scroll down or scroll around to get to the information that they may be looking for. Now, differentiators, I want to talk about that. That is, I think, out of the entire components, elements of a capability statement, differentiators is tough. But again, your Apex Accelerator, have those conversations. The more that counselor knows about your company, knows about your core competencies, they'll be able, to help you come up with the differentiator. But that is a unique feature or benefit of a product or your service that sets you apart from your competitors. In other words, why buy from you? And what makes you different from your competition? And the other key piece is, how does it benefit the agency's mission? That's what you want to do. What is the agency's mission? How can you serve to fill a void in that mission? So why did your biggest customer want to buy from you? How and why is your company the best choice for the needs of this opportunity or agency? Excuse me? What is about your product or service that stands you out from the rest? Keep that key in your mind when we talk about differentiator. And what is it about your people that give you advantage to your competitors? Maybe they have additional licenses or certifications that may make you stand apart. And on products, why is your product a better solution than others that are available? And then you want to think about, okay, what makes you different from your competition? I kind of mentioned that. And how does it benefit the buyer? Now, you might say that's the buyer's work. You want to make that buyer's job as easy as possible. And if it means doing some of their work, do it. If it means going that extra mile, do it. I've seen time and time again. And I kind of see it from both perspectives. And let me just backtrack. I am a business owner. I've been a business owner in a variety of industries. And I never really with the intent to pursue government contracts, though I had one. I had one. And it did well. Maybe if we have some time, we could talk about that. But I am registered in SAM. So I do have a little better perspective with that piece, just a tinge. And then the benefit to the buyer. I've seen buyers, they have a lot of stuff on their desk. They're trying to juggle so many things, and I know that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do, but it's easy that you can make it on them. It will be an extra mile benefit for you. But make it short, to the point, and focus the needs of the buyer. Highlight the customer benefits. And if you can, incorporate metrics, specifics, that goes a long way. What not to use, socioeconomic certifications. That's like, and again, you'll get a different opinion, but I think socioeconomic certifications are great. Get them. They have their need, but they're not a differentiator. They're like icing on the cake. You want to focus on your capability statement. You want to focus on your competencies and your capacity. Do not, socioeconomic certifications is not a differentiator. Generic statements that, best in class, industry, outstanding customer service. No, even though you have that, everybody has that, or everybody's going to say they have it, whether they have it or not. Quality, you got to be specific. And again, your Apex Accelerator client can kind of help you when you talk about your day-to-day business activities and how you support the customer and your product or service. Those differentiators will kind of rise to the top, and we can, as Apex Accelerator counselors, we can help with that. Past performance, that is a key area, and there's let me just do this chart first. But you headline it past performance. You provide a brief description of work, name of client, and the client info. You want to include any contracts. That's always good. If your work does not pertain to the opportunity that they're looking for, do not include. Now you might say, I don't have any past performance on this with this business, but you may have past performance as an employee, and there's strategically a way you can say that on your capability statement. You could maybe not have any direct contracts, but you could have subcontracted. You could have subcontracted, and this past performance doesn't have to be federal contracting. It could be state or city contract. It could be with any companies that you've done business with. That's past performance. So keep that in mind. And even the owner, maybe the owner has worked in an industry for so many years and they know it at the back of their hands, and you're starting this up. You could, the owner has this experience. And I can say that this current administration had sent out an executive order talking about that they wanted to engage, get new small businesses into the supply chain. So I think the buyers and contracting officers may be getting better support, or justified support to engage new entries that may not necessarily have this past performance. What not to use if past projects do not relate to the targeted agency's needs, do not list. If a reference is not available, do not list. Appearances do matter. And that middle one, don't overwhelm too many colors and fonts. This is an example. I took this, I didn't feel like redoing the chart, but it had some key information on it. Make it clean. Don't overwhelm too many colors and fonts. Make it crisp and to the point. Use recommended section headers to organize and make readable. Make sure you match your corporate look and include your logo if you have one. And save as a PDF, print on nice paper. No need to go over the top. These are some helpful hints. Consider writing success stories for each project you complete. Keep a library of these success stories, organized by project type. Do your research before reaching out. And before you put your I kind of mentioned that, before you put your capability statement together. And don't waste your time and their time by not knowing what they do and what they require to work for them. What I recommend to my clients is create a master document. And you could say it's draft. Don't try to put it in a form yet. And actually, this next chart, we do have a capability statement template available. And I know you probably might not be able to see all the wording in the template, but this is not an actual capability statement. It's the template. And within each of those sections, it tells you what needs to be included in those sections. But I guess the point I wanted to make was create a master document. Throw everything on there. Everything, all your capability, your business model, the just tips and your codes and just everything on this document, including those good stories. And then you'll have a master document to pull pieces to populate your capability statement. And as you're evolving and growing your business, you'll still have this master document where, depending on who you're talking to and what the capability, what the capacity is, you'll always be able to use this net master document to create capability statements, capability briefings, so you won't have to scramble around, and you'll be able to cut and paste. So it just helps you work a little more efficiently. So, any questions on the capability statement? Again, your Apex Accelerator can help you pull one together. If you have one already prepared, reach out to your Apex Accelerator and have some conversation about it. No questions? Great. Did Shonda or Jill get back on, Edwin?
No, we're still trying to get them on a different way. For some reason, the password and the link was not working for both of them. So we're trying to get around it, see if they can get in.
Okay, and it could be a firewall that they have. The government has so many firewalls these days. And actually, let me just bring this up. I know I run into a lot of clients that have email addresses that have, and I should have mentioned that in the capability statement, that have yahoo.com or gmail.com. Try to have it extension related. And this is me again. If I'm looking at a capability statement, I'm more impressed with it having the name of, the name of your company at that extension than a Gmail or Yahoo account. Now, I do differ between counselors within my Ohio network, and I'm sure there's companies out there getting federal contracts with yahoo.com and gmail.com. But if I'm going to refer or be thinking about, showing opportunities, I want to make sure that if it's something I'm passing on, I want to make sure it passes, whether good or bad, I'm sorry, it passes my muster in order to be. So be thinking about that. And more federal agencies, you can't get through their firewalls. And with the additional hackings, as you can see, and additional security layers, get rid of the Gmail account or the Yahoo. So let me get to Sam. Okay, System for Award Management. SAM is a free registration. SAM is free. There's a bunch of folks out there, third parties that, you pay them a fee and they'll register. No, you can do this, you can do it. And Apex Accelerators can help you with that. What is SAM? The System for Award Management is the official website of the U.S. government. There is no cost to use SAM. You will use this website to register to do business with the government. All interested parties, all businesses interested in receiving contracts or grants from the federal government must register in SAM. And you must have an active entity registration in SAM before applying for any business certifications. And they'll talk more about those certifications tomorrow, because before you can even go into that SBA portal for the certification, they'll bounce it off in SAM, and they'll ask for your UEI and some banking information to make sure it's in there. So watch out for that. Oh, and did I say SAM is a free registration? I know I did. Hope you get the point, because again, you can do it. Now, there's a couple different steps to SAM. You've got to create 2 accounts. One is a login.gov, and one is the sam.gov account. Now, the login.gov, I've had clients that think once they've registered an account in login.gov, they've registered their entity. No, no, no. Login.gov is like the first layer of security that more and more federal agencies are using. Login.gov, again, you need that to access SAM. Set up an account in SAM. And I know Social Security Administration uses login.gov, the Veterans Administration, TSA, Transportation Services Administration. You need to have a login.gov account before you can register in any of those federal agencies' accounts. And more federal agencies are using login.gov as the first point of entry. So once you've registered in login.gov, you want to create a sam.gov account. Now, sam.gov account, it could be in, with your business address. And I think that was a question, the individual with the SAM. As long as it's a SAM account, and because you will be receiving information via email through that SAM that account email address that you set up. But again, creating a SAM account is not registering your entity. Now you can use the same login and password for both of those accounts. And actually, example, I'm registered in SAM, and the same login and password I use for sam.gov. Now, to register your entity, you've set up both accounts, you're able to access in SAM. To register your entity, you log into SAM, and then you either access your workspace to start registering your entity, or you can click on Get Started. And this is where it gets a little tricky because there's several verification steps within SAM. First, you can, let's see, move that out of the way. You either use your tax ID number, and it's either your employee identification number or your social security number. Now, there may be some sole proprietorships out there. I recommend, and this is Vikki talking again, not using your social security number, just get a tax ID number. But again, that's your call. But you'll need you'll need a tax identification number. So use your EIN, employee identification number, or your social security number. And the first checkpoint is the entity validation. And that's where they'll assign your UEI. And that's just the first step. Just because you have a UEI assigned doesn't mean your entity is registered. And the individual, I don't know if they're still on, they said they had an active SAM account. And the only way that I can verify they have active, if I go have them log in and if I can see that it's active, because several of my clients had thought they registered their entity with the UEI assigned. No. That's the first step. So the second checkpoint within, and you haven't even registered yet, is the IRS validation. And they'll go in and see if your EIN, to see if your tax ID number matches with the IRS. And once you complete that checkpoint, then it's the third checkpoint where they'll go in and verify. I call them the cage people, government and commercial and government entity code validation. They'll go in and validate your physical address and some other information. And once you get assigned the cage code, that means you're in. You have an active SAM entity registration. SAM entity, yeah. So I think you need to prepare a little bit before you even try to go in and start the registration. You'll need information on your legal business name, your physical address, no PO boxes, no virtual offices, especially if you want the cage code assigned, no virtual offices. I know there's a lot of addresses where they actually don't look like post office box, or the virtual box, but it actually is. You need a physical address. You need a date of, and for the company incorporation and the state of incorporation. Let me step back to the physical address. Now, I know there's a lot of concern about if you have a home office and you don't want your record in SAM showing your home office is, where you live, home office, and I understand that. So you're going to have to figure out, and it can't be a virtual office because the cage people will know and they won't accept it, and you won't get the entity. You won't get the entity registration active. So again, have some conversation. If that, pertains in your situation, reach out to your Apex Accelerator. Now, I know there's some exceptions where you don't if you have a home office and you don't have to, show that home office address. There are some professions that have exception, but they are rare. They are rare. So again, preparing for your entity registration in SAM, you need to go to your state. I'm just going to, so for example, state of Ohio. Go to your, where you registered it, you did your registration for your business. If it's LLC, go there. If it's the DBA, you need the trade name information. But I want you'll be able to download it. And I want you, don't just save the certificate. Save the actual registration application that you hand scribed in, or whether you, typed it in. And it's usually 3 or 4 pages. Save the entire document. You also may need, now we're still on the UEI. We haven't even got to the provisions and clauses 50 plus that you'll have to complete. They may need some other documentation because, again, they need to, for this validation, they need to prove the physical address. Now, a lot of times, and I've run into this several occasions with clients that provide their state, the state registration, and it does have your physical, it does have the address that is your physical address, but it doesn't designate it as the physical address. It designates it as the statutory agent's address, or where the receipt is received. But again, for the purpose of SAM, it needs to say physical address. And these are some of the documents that may have a physical address, but my tax filings, I wouldn't want my tax filings. I wouldn't want my bank statements, and it's taken it from my frame of reference. Operating agreement. You may not have an operating agreement, but there's plenty of templates out there that you could create an operating agreement, and you could list your physical address at the header of that operating agreement, get it signed and notarized, and that is accepted. So, utility bills, you could, as long as it has the physical address and the actual company name, it's got to be exact. So again, you may need some additional information to verify your entity. Also needed, you will need to get the information on how you file your taxes, and they'll even ask you for the current year. Yeah, they really get, and so they really get into asking the questions. So you'll just need to have that information readily available. We talked about NAICS codes and product service codes. You'll have those. The census, there's a sample of a page of the census for your NAICS code, and then there's the header page for the product service code tool. You also need your business checking information, because you'll need your routing number and account number and the phone number of your bank. Other items you'll need access, of course, to a computer because this is an online application, access to your email. I kind of mentioned that before because you'll receive email notifications during the process and some other information you may need to get ready to complete the registration. So it's time to register once you've completed all that information. Before you get started, there is a complete 4-step. And I had to just take a picture of it and excuse the dimness of it, but it gives you 4 steps. Read those, reread those. They're pretty good. Those descriptors are pretty good in helping you guide through registering your entity and obtaining the UEI. But definitely read first. It's in 4 parts. It talks about the registration and setting up your SAM.gov account, preparing your data, and getting started. They also give you a download where it gives you some registration guidelines. And they ask you this throughout the registration. I mean, they provide the download link throughout the registration. Now you haven't registered yet. Okay, then you need to follow the prompts. Start your registration. And I'm not going through the whole thing. I'm just going through a couple because we would be here for hours if we were going through the hours. So we're not going to do that. But I do want to point out a couple areas. First we'll ask you what you do. And this stumps a lot of clients. So what do you do? And when you read it, the first one, you want to register for financial assistance awards only. Second is register for all awards. And the other is get an entity ID only. I'm going to ask A, B, or C. Oh, I already gave the answer. Some folks say A, some folks say if you're trying to get contracts or purchase orders, if you register for all awards, you'll be able to access both. If financial assistance awards, and you'll automatically get a UEI. Then this next question stumps a lot of clients. Are you, again, it's the language of the government. I know. You've got to read it 2 or 3 times. When they added this, because they had an upgrade in April to the system, they added this question. I had to read it a couple times. It says, are you registering a government entity? Now, you would kind of think reading it first, okay, is my business a government entity? No, it isn't. If you are registering an official organization, department, or institution of a U.S. state, U.S. local, U.S. tribal, or foreign government. No, you are not. So the answer to that would be no. Then a sub-question, they'll say, okay, is your business located in the United States? And you would say yes. So you'll get a summary of what those questions were, and you would just verify that that's correct. Then you'll go on. Then they'll do a data search. Cross your fingers that your company is in that data search, but the company has to be in there in the exact location of the exact location of your physical address. If there's anything different about it, you will say no. And then you'll provide the appropriate documents to show the correct address. But if anything's different, don't try to get by it. Just say no, because you'll get caught up in that. Again, reach out to your Apex Accelerator. I'd mentioned you might need 1 or more documents to validate, to get your UEI. And I just kind of repeated this screen here. Let's just say you were good to go and you end up seeing this screen. That means they validated your entity. If you can get from the search and everything is exact and they found you and you get to this screen, you're getting ready to start the entity registration. If not, you're going to have to create an incident and upload documents because they're still hung up with verifying your entity. So you'll have 4 areas to complete: core data, assertions, representations, and certifications, points of contact. If you're the type that reads everything, then you're going to be on here hours, and that's fine. Each question should have a link or sublink so you can refer to the FAR. We talked about that a little earlier, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. Next step is where you will create your marketing partner identification number. It's all part of you authorizing, you having the permission to authorize this entity. You must add in, you can't leave this 0, your startup company, you say, I don't have any, receipts. It still has to be a number. It won't let you advance to the next screen if you don't put a number in. Average number of employees, I'm told, I had a client that said they put a 0 in there and then let them go through. So maybe they made a change to that. If you have 0, 0, but in the past it had to be a number, and that number wasn't a 0. Again, you'll go back to the, I see a misspelled word there. Sorry about that. Emailed. Okay, anyways, so the input, you'll be asked to input that marketing partner identification number. You will need to do that, and you'll have to date it as well. This is where they ask for your banking information. All where you see red asterisks, there has to be an entry. You already have your NAICS codes. Right below this screen, I didn't cut and paste it, is your product service codes. Make sure you put in your product service codes. You can always make changes, add, take away product service codes, but we're trying to get you active first. So you might not have all of them now, and that's okay, but you have to have at least one entry in the NAICS code in order to advance. I'd recommend putting in the NAICS code and also look at your product service codes. But again, as I mentioned, you can make changes, update once you become active. Now, this is a little for those that are small disadvantaged businesses, and there is a definition to that, and it's referenced in one of those FAR sites. And check out the small business programs, but it's if you're socially and economically disadvantaged, and there's 4 or 5 areas where they automatically you're considered small disadvantaged business. But within this screen, where it gives a summary of your NAICS, if you blinked, you would miss it, because they're right below the NAICS code. There's a little box where it says, are you, and I can't see it because of, oh gosh, I think it's the way, no, it isn't, where it's right below, and I didn't capture it. Let's see here. Yeah, I didn't capture it. It's right below where it says select value. It'll ask, are you a SDB? It gives you it's not a required field. Don't ask me why it's not, but it's not a required field, but you've got to say yes or no. Otherwise, when they do a summary of your record, if you're SDB, you won't show up as an SDB. And if buyers or contractor officers are looking for SDBs, they won't find you in their search. Now, there's there's probably 50 plus more questions, yes or no questions, fill-in questions in this entity registration. But a couple of the important ones is they talk about the cyber security, incident reporting. You'll have to address that. They also ask you if you have a financial system in place, which is new. They also ask if you employ physically handicapped individuals. Those are like yes or no answers, but definitely answer. Then you're almost ready to submit. Now, you will have the opportunity before you submit to go to your profile, SBA profile. It takes you to another platform where you have to input more data. Now, there's different takes on that. My focus as a counselor, I want to get you active. I want to get your registration active. If you have this information available and ready, if the system is working, once you link to the next platform, you're good to go, and then input your data. But then there's another way to access data. I recommend getting active and going back and adding your capability statement in, because you might not have all the information needed yet, because you still need to add, access detailed market research. So it's your option to either submit or go into the Small Business Administration platform, upload. That'll probably take you once you figure it out, maybe another half hour, 45 minutes. I'd say circle back around, get active and circle back around. But again, your call. Finally, you'll get the screen to review your entity registration and hit submit. So your entity's registration will not be considered active until the following takes place. You've got to go through the IRS validation. And there's some other things. Then you have to go through the cage code validation. The cage code will be sent to another organization, and they have a couple days to review. They'll be digging into that physical address, and they'll even give you a follow-up email asking you, okay, this physical address, is it a home office? Is it a virtual office? Is it a shared office? They'll ask you about your contact information, all the information that you input in your registration, they'll ask you again. But again, you respond. You have a certain amount of days to respond. And if they don't get the response, check your spam folder, your junk folder. It'll change the status. Instead of submitted your registration, it's the work in process. And you'll have to kind of go back through some of the process. Now, I wanted to show, took this excerpt from the workspace. You'll see when you go to your workspace, and hopefully you can see it. If not, just kind of enhance your screen, zoom in a little bit. You see those little 6 areas. If you have a 1 in that first one where it says active registration, you are good to go. You are good to go. That's what you want to see, a 1. If you see a 0 in there, you're not active and you can't get awards or contracts. When you get your UEI assigned, you'll see a 1. This client has UEI assigned. If it's inactive, you'll see a 1 there. Pending ID assignment. If you're just starting the process, you still need information validated to validate your entity, you'll see a 1 there that it's kind of pending, and it won't be a 1 in the ID assigned. Work in progress. Say we submitted this registration, a 1 would pop up there. No, let me take that back. Once you submitted your registration, it'll say submitted. The 1 at the end will say 1. If it's work in progress, say you started your registration and you kind of stopped to get some additional information, it'll say a work in progress 1. So again, it's important to look at your workspace to see where you are in the process. I know the individual that was on that said, I'm registered in SAM, and I kind of hesitate. I was like, oh, I wish I could see the record because, some folks think the entity is registered and it's not. It's registered and active if you see a 1 in the active registration. Okay. Let's see, we're almost done. Any questions on the SAM?
Vikki, I did have a few questions that we'll put on the chat. You want me to tell you what they were, or you want to wait till the end?
If it's related to the SAM.
Okay, there was one that said, hold on just a moment. Is there any consultant firm that is available to aid with this process?
Yes, Apex Accelerator can assist with SAM registration. Absolutely. We're the go-to folks. Even the other
Okay,
resource partners say go to Apex Accelerator to register in SAM, and our services are at no cost. Next question.
Another one says, does the cage code come from SAM or elsewhere?
Cage code does not come from SAM. It comes from Defense Logistics Agency, part of the Department of Defense. It is evaluated that cage code assignment is done there. Then once you get assigned a cage code, it goes back into the SAM cycle, the work process cycle, and then you'll see it from your SAM. You'll see it from your SAM active record. Your SAM active record will say active, and it will give a cage code assignment. Plus, you'll get an email saying that you have a cage code assigned. Next question related to SAM.
Another one I have, would you recommend different cap ST for different bid or the same?
Different what?
It says different cap ST.
Oh, capability statement for
different bids or the same.
And without having more information, I'd recommend one capability statement, but again, it depends on your competencies. If you have similar competencies, I think there would be a way to still have one capability statement. So again, I'd reach to your Apex Accelerator counselor and have that conversation. Quick example, I know I had a client that had janitorial, and then it was kind of construction, and then something in transportation. We ended up brainstorming and say, how can we capture this? What word would cover all three of these sectors? What industry? And you have some conversation about that. Logistics or facilities maintenance, have some conversation, but you try to have similar industries or sectors in the same capability statement. Next.
Okay, another one is, can you get assistance?
It was capability statement. I'm talking about SAM right now. If it's out of SAM, then we'll try to do it at the end.
Okay. Another question was, can you get assistance from any Apex Accelerator, or do you have to contact the state Apex where your business is registered?
No, there's a link to Apex Accelerator, and it's at the end of the presentation. I don't have my folks in here that you could Google apexaccelerator.us, and that'll give you the nationwide locator. Apex Accelerator, but at the end of these charts, and you'll be getting the charts, they'll have the nationwide link, the state link, and then the one for, I think, Central Ohio. So I'm going to stop there and talk about the elevator pitch. Just have a few more minutes here. Elevator pitch, it's also known as elevator speech, and it's an opportunity to share a quick summary of yourself, your company, your product offerings, how you can help, who you're networking with, and a call to action. Very important for it to have a call of action at the end of it. It should be 30 to 60 seconds in length, approximately 75 words. No longer, then they call it, then an elevator ride. It takes, planning to make a good impression. It's very important. You just have a few words chance to make that great impression to a decision maker. Small business owners often say that decision makers are in a hurry and want vendors to get right to the point. Yes, yes, and yes. Similarly, government buyers say, when those small businesses come, ill prepared and stating what they do succinctly, that sends up red flags. So it's key to make sure that you have a tight elevator pitch, and you'll have several depending on your networking. trade shows, matchmakers, individual introductions, group introductions, reception, networking, they all may kind of, change up a little bit depending on your audience. And even online profiles, you have a pitch and you could create a pitch there. Basically, you have an introduction, the company, the solution, your value proposition, and your call to action. Apex Accelerators can help you in developing your pitch. I highly recommend before you go out to connect with those federal agencies or those large businesses, use the Apex Accelerator Counselor as a sounding board. Any questions on the elevator pitch? And just a few more charts. Maybe I'll just carry on. Outreach, pretty important. You need to maximize use in SAM. I mean, there's so many market research tools. Learn how to navigate SAM, maximize use in SAM. As a counselor, Apex Accelerator counselors, we're always in SAM. Looking, at federal government opportunities. And actually, Apex Accelerators, we help businesses do business with all levels of government. So within Ohio, it's Ohio buys. If you're in the city of Columbus, doing business in the city of Columbus, city of Dayton, Cleveland. So our niche is government contracting. It's just today we're talking about SAM, but you can reach out to Apex Accelerator to schedule those sessions. Learn how to use SAM. We have a lot of tips and shortcuts because you could be all day long going down a bunch of rabbit holes looking for opportunities. So once you have your session with your Apex Accelerator, then, in between the sessions, you're in there digging. So when you come back to your session, you have more targeted questions to get more targeted answers. Next chart. But key elements that are in the SAM are sources sought notices and requests for information. These are opportunities where you need to provide feedback if you have the capabilities and capacity. And even if you don't, if it's closed, have that conversation with your Apex Accelerator, because this is the point where that buyer, that could vary. Buyer contracting officer isn't quite sure how they want to write up the solicitation. But then on the flip side, they could already know, and they're trying to justify why they're going to buy it the way they want to buy it. So, I recommend submitting those, even if you can provide a piece of it. They may decide, hey, and if more responses are for a piece, they may decide, hey, let's take that piece out and make it a small business set aside. So you never know, and you'll never know the rhyme or reason. So respond to those sources sought notices, respond to those requests for information. And it's basically the market research that the agencies are doing to determine the capabilities and interests of those in the marketplace. And if they don't, get a response, hey, it could have been a potential for a small business set aside, or even breaking it down for one of the socioeconomic categories for set aside. Now, marketing to agencies, that's, I've kind of talked about that a little bit in the market research. You've got to do your market research. Look at the goaling reports, the strategic plans, the opportunity forecast. Use the capability statement. No mass emails. Don't do those blasts. The agency contacts, reach out to the small business specialists, the contracting officers, the procurement center representatives who are direct employees of SBA who are placed throughout the federal agency marketplace, and even individual buyers. All these are ways to kind of incorporate your market research, to have a market research strategy. And with primes, it's pretty much the same way, except the prime contacts are a little different. They're supplier diversity managers, small business liaison officers, subcontracting managers, program managers. But the market research is in the same, you kind of do it in the same way. You just need to connect with that prime contractor, look at their website, look at their strategic plans, what their objectives are. If they have supplier portals, register in their supplier portals. I want you to consider all opportunities that where you can have the capabilities and the capacity, and to look at the primes. Subcontracting opportunities, look at direct contracts with the actual agency, even look at teaming arrangements, because there could be some potential there. Use your network, expand your network. This holiday event could be a good start to kind of kick off and start establishing those relationships. But brevity is key. Don't be, just kind of move around. You got to work the room. Don't just stay in one place. There's 3 asks, 3 tells: who you are, what you do, and what your value is. Then ask upcoming opportunities, events, or people in the organization. That's pretty quick, along with your elevator pitch. And then whatever marketing material, you have available, your card, or however you're going to communicate your contact information, and definitely get their contact information. One of the things I wanted to mention as far as the outreach, Apex Accelerator does offer at no cost a bid match profile, where once you have your capability statement, that counselor can pull information off your capability statement, create a profile where you'll start getting daily notices. Definitely take advantage of that. I know there's some out there that do cost a fee, cost monthly fees for a service as this. But again, you will have to kind of monitor it, because depending on how your profile is set up, you want to tweak it so it really targets your capabilities and capacity. Related to outreach, know your customer, what they buy, their product or service, how they buy it, when they buy it, know the rules, the regulations, the contracting requirements, specifications. Look at the history. That helps. That can help with your pricing. Market research that's out there. History is out there. And make sure you perform as required: on-time delivery, quality, and price. Don't be afraid to ask questions and get clarification. Don't submit your proposal late. Don't be late for appointments. Make sure, like with Zoom, if you're meeting with a buyer contracting officer, make sure you have a dry run. Don't get on the Zoom call and you don't know how to share your screen. Make sure you don't do it. Make sure you're at least familiar with the technology so you can have a smooth presentation. Don't be unreliable. Some of these seem obvious. Don't oversell. Don't be unprepared. Don't drag out your presentations. Sloppy paperwork. Yeah, some of these requirements have exact margins, exact font size. Some of these proposals, they'll give you, hey, this margin, this font size, and this font style. And they could kick you out for not even get to your proposal. Don't be demanding or difficult, and don't have unrealistic goals. Okay, next steps. I definitely recommend, if you're not already an Apex Accelerator client, become a client. If you haven't connected with your counselor, reconnect, because there's been a lot of changes. But I provided the Apex Accelerator National link, Ohio Apex Accelerator link, and then the Apex Accelerator at Ohio University link. I want to give a shout out to Central Ohio Region, which I am part of. I handle Franklin County. So if you're in Franklin County, I'm it. And I just want to give a shout out to them. And this is the All Ohio Network, and it provides the contact information and email addresses, but definitely this is where you start. This, you register as a client, and then it shows up in our work queue, and then a counselor will reach out to you by phone or email. Okay. I'll take a couple more questions. If there are any, then I've got a dash. I've got a dash. But next, any questions, comments, feedback? I know I kind of zipped through it, but I do want to say, you know, we got a little late start. This package should give you a good guide, a good basis. Reaching out to your Apex Accelerator will do that as well to kind of take some of those more specific questions. Anything general?
I had a few questions that were still on the chat. I'll throw them out at you, see if you can answer those quickly. One is, I have a home office and everything is in my home address as location. Will the UEI check be denied?
No, they just need to prove a physical address.
Okay.
You have a home office and it's in your home. They just need a brick in a physical address. It can't be. Now you could be in a I guess a hub where the thing about the physical address, that is where you do your ad. They look at it, where do you do your paperwork? You could have visitors, you know, you could meet visitors at the library, or you could meet them at Panera Bread. You know, I'm not visitors, your clients. It's like, where do you take care of your paperwork? Where do you do your emails? Where do you, do your basic work activity? Where do you delegate the work? You could meet clients outside of that space, but that's what they want. Next question.
Okay, if you've registered originally to get the UEI, can I change to the all awards?
Yes, you can go back in to your workspace, and then once you go to your record, your actual record, you can, within your record, because they give those little triple dots a couple different places, look in your actual record where you see your UEI, and over to the right, you'll see little triple dots. Click on that, and it should say register or update. But yeah, you can go on. You started the process. You have your UEI. Now you need to register your entity. Next question.
Will contractors be considered employees, or is it only W-2?
Oh, and Sam, are you talking? Talking in Sam when they ask number of employees.
Oh, it doesn't say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm thinking it because it's Sam. When you have to put a number in there, I would not put in 1099s. Those are contractors. They're not employees. And if you don't have employees, then just put you as your business. If that makes sense.
The next one is, any pointers on how to utilize SBA Mentor Protege Program?
Okay, I'm going to have SBA talk about that because I have another opinion on that, and we don't totally agree on that. Save that for open office hours. Open office hours, and we can have some conversation about that. But the mentor protege, you need to make sure you're bringing something to the table. If you're just a starter, what value are you giving that mentor? What value? Why do they want to work with you? It's got to be a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street. But next question.
How do we get in touch to Apex?
Okay, I provided that chart. They'll also give you, let's see if I can share that screen again. It should have been throughout the chart. I don't know, I can't get to it right now, but the presentation will be sent out. Are you in Ohio? And actually, I'm not going to even answer that because I have to go and look at websites just like you do. I don't keep them all in my head. It's too many. So I've misquoted. I've switched stuff around. So no, I'd have to go, okay, thank you. Thank you. Just for them. Thank you. So one more question.
What types of opportunities could a licensed professional counselor apply for when it comes to contracts with the government?
Contact your Apex Accelerator and have them help you peel back the layers on that. I'd have to go in and search, and just like you would. So you can do that with your Apex Accelerator counselor. One more. Make it good, Edwin.
Okay, hold on just a moment. I see if I can get it going over here. Let me see. I think that's what was there. Is there anybody?
Subcontract. I see one kind of related to subcontracting. Let's say you don't want to get a prime contract. You could go into SAM and search on your NAICS code or product service code or keyword, and you don't have to have an account. You could just search on it and do an advanced search and get award notices and see who's getting awards in your, and just kind of look and poke around. And you could always look that entity up in SAM. You got to have an active SAM account to look up entity information. So again, those are things you can peel back the layer with your counselor. It's more to it. It's dynamic. There's no it's a recipe. Everyone will have their own recipe, and based on all these components, you'll have your own recipe. But there's certain things, certain elements that'll be key. Thank you for your time. I hate to dash off, but I have another appointment that I'll probably be late to, but definitely be looking out. ECDI, the open office hours. We're going to start that back up, and I think we could get some good traction having those open office hours. So everyone take care. Got a dash. Enjoy the session. Hope you learned something. Take care.
Thank you, Vikki. Thank you for everything. And everybody, I really appreciate your patience and understanding. And thank you for, coming back and going through the presentation. We will be back for the other presentations for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we'll send out the links to those. So again, thank you for everything. And again, I do apologize for what happened, but I really appreciate everybody coming back. Okay, everybody.